Hi and welcome to Literary Hype. I am Stephanie, your Literary Hype Woman, and on today's author conversation is someone you've probably seen their books around on TikTok or on Bookstagram. They're pretty popular, especially if you like something with a little bit more magic to it. I'm talking about Rachel Griffin. This is her brand new book, Bring Me Your Midnight. She's got a couple other books out there already, so we got the chance to sit down and have a little chat at Y'all West. And I learned some really interesting things about her. And you know, my detector on this particular issue is really good. And I was wrong. And so you get to see me be wrong. Not very often that happens. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Rachel Griffin. So you're a fellow ginger.
Yeah.
You know the stereotypes of gingers and sass. Do you feel like that is true for you?
Sass in me or not, I've never felt witty or because I think a lot of sass can be wit, and I've never really felt very witty.
I mean, but you were on the panel at Emerald City with the Battle of the Tropes.
Well, and we all saw how that went.
It was hilarious. You had some good lines in there.
I had a few good lines. I felt that they were mostly self-deprecating.
Those are always the best ones.
Yeah. I think that part of the reason why that panel I didn't win any of the rounds was mainly because I don't consider myself very witty.
That's like, you get a lot of crap as a ginger for being so intense, and so it's really nice when you see someone who doesn't fit that mold. What other ways do you not fit like a mold that you like breaking the mold?
Well, I do feel that I have to come clean and tell you I do dye my hair red. It's not natural. I know. I'm
so
sorry.
that's why you're not sassy.
I know that's why it's why I'm not witty. It's just like.
But you pull it off so well, and not a lot of people can pull off ginger.
Thank you. You know, it's funny. My hair's been red for so long now. I don't even remember what it looks like. But let's see other ways to break the mold. I don't know that I feel that I think that like as I've gotten older, I've just really tried to like claim aspects of myself that maybe I didn't used to love. So like being sensitive is one of those things where I feel like, you know, I don't know that that's breaking the mold, but it's something where it is breaking my mold for me to start to reclaim something that I used to think was not very good. So I would say maybe leaning into being sensitive for me would be breaking my mold.
Vulnerability is something people think of as a weakness, but it is actually a strength.
It's a strength for sure. Yeah, I think that being able to be sensitive and being vulnerable is a gift, and it's a beautiful thing. But I think especially young girls are taught to try and like toughen up and things like that, and it's like, well, now I'm, much older and I never did toughen up. I am still just sensitive, and I think vulnerability is a gift, and it's something that I do try to have a lot of vulnerability with my relationships. I try to put a lot of vulnerability in my books and have that with my readers. I think it's a really beautiful thing.
And that's what I was going to ask next is how does the sensitivity and vulnerability play into your writing?
I mean, in a huge way. I think in my first book, The Nature of Witches, much of Clara's journey is about reclaiming parts of herself that others taught her were weaknesses and actually seeing those as strengths. And that was absolutely my journey with being a very, very sensitive person, was having to learn to look at that as a strength instead of a weakness. But it also just factors into my writing a lot. I write very character-driven books that do they give you full access to the main character's emotions, and I do try to be vulnerable in my writing. I think that a lot of times the books I'm writing are me working through things that I needed to be working through, or that I'm, healing from things that have happened before. So I think, I look at all of my books and I kind of see what I was working through, and a lot of them, all of them, end up being really vulnerable for me in one way or another.
Do you realize that it's something that you're working through while you're writing the book, or is it something you see kind of in the rear view?
I love that question, because one of the coolest things about writing for me is that it's something I see in the rear view. I never know what I'm working through. And in fact, with my second book, Wild is the Witch, I remember being like, I don't think this book is about anything. I had worked like on multiple drafts of it, and I was like, what am I saying with this book? I don't even know. And it was actually pretty far along in the process. I sat down and I read it back for, the 100th time, and it suddenly hit me what I had been working through with that book. And a lot of with Wild is, letting yourself love the things that you love, and being proud of the things that you love, and loving parts of yourself loving the parts of yourself that you think are unlovable. But I never know what I'm working through when I'm writing. It just always is something that comes up after.
Loving what you love is a big theme in the upcoming Christina Lauren book, The True Love Experiment. And that really just embraces the love of fangirls. What does fangirling mean to you? Like, I've seen you at other conventions, so what is fangirling for you?
I think being unapologetically enthusiastic about the things that bring you joy. Like, I think that, and finding other people who love the same things that you love, and being able to find venues like cons and festivals where you are surrounded by people who love the things that you love, and you can tell the people who create the things that you love them. I think it is such a beautiful thing to be unapologetically joyful. And I find, the fangirl idea to be like a really beautiful one.
And we are at Y'all West. What is the energy and vibe like here for you from your perspective?
I mean, I feel like I am here, and I just feel that I've been on like cloud nine all day. It is a dream. It's one of those things where I keep pausing and looking around and being like, I can't believe that I get to do this, that I get to be here surrounded by other book lovers. And it is a dream come true. And meeting readers in person is just one of my absolute favorite parts of the process. And I just kind of feel like all day I've been having these moments where I pause and I'm like, wow, this is the dream.
I mean, the line for Bring Me Your Midnights arc was so long, and they ran out with a lot of people still in line. What does it feel like for you to see that much excitement for something of yours that you created?
I can't even describe it. Like, it is... For the longest time, writing felt like a pipe dream for me, or I should say publishing was like a pipe dream. I didn't know that it could ever happen. And now that, I get to go to book festivals and I get to meet readers, and I have ARC drops happening where we're running out, it is an indescribable joy that still, honestly, leaves me speechless, as you can tell right now. Like, it's hard for me to figure out how to put into words what it means to me.
So your next book is Bring Me Your Midnights. Why don't you introduce us to what's going on in this book?
Oh, Bring Me Your Midnight. So I will say this is the most fun I've ever had writing this book. It just poured out of me. I've never had a writing experience like this. I doubt I will ever have another one. But Bring Me Your Midnight is a romantic fantasy. It is definitely my most romantic book yet. And it's about a girl who is betrothed. It's about a witch who's betrothed to the governor's son to create peace for the first time between the witches and the mainland. But when she meets an outcast boy with forbidden magic, she has to choose between duty to her coven and following her heart. And it's set on an island, and so there's a lot of ocean love and a lot of cottagecore vibes and gothic vibes, and it's a forbidden love story, and so it's angsty. We have our like brooding love interest, and
I mean, is it really YA without some angst?
I know, yeah. And it was just so much fun for me to write. I cannot wait for this book to be out in the world. I am so excited for it. I can't wait for readers to start reading it. I just have a ton of excitement about it.
What was it about the conflict between love and duty that drew you into this world that you created?
I have always been someone, like, I hate disappointing people. I don't want to ever let anyone down, and I do think that that has often, or I don't know if I should say often, but many times in my life led me to make choices, I think, for other people that were the best choices for them, but maybe not the best choices for me. And I wanted to write a book about that. I wanted to write about someone who cares deeply about the people around her, who never wants to let anyone down, but who sees a different path for herself than the one that's been laid out for her, and the conflicting emotions that come with that, and how tough it is to love where you came from but want to go in a different direction, because that can be an extremely painful realization.
I mean, I feel like women have a lot of that pressure of being fitting the mold.
Yes.
What do you hope your readers take away from this story?
I think it's a few things. One is that it is okay to question the way that you've, I don't want to say the way you've been raised, but like when you read the book, you'll understand. But that it is okay to question the places and people around you, if in terms of if those are the right people and places for you, and questioning those things doesn't mean that you don't believe in them, and it doesn't mean that they're bad. I think it's okay and that it's good to make intentional choices for yourself. But the other one is that it doesn't make you bad. It doesn't make you a disappointment if what you want for your life is not what the people around you want for your life. And at the end of the day, you are the one who lives with those choices.
It's such an important lesson just across the board. I feel like social media has put so much pressure on people to fit a mold and look a certain way, even though it's not always realistic. So these kind of lessons are so important. But you put a fun, magical twist on that. What is it about magic? I mean, you've got several books featuring magic. What is it about magic that you love?
Gosh, I love everything about magic. For starters, I mean, I think the magic that I write is of course very rooted in the natural world, and to me nature is magic. I mean, I love this earth and this world, and I'm constantly inspired by the nature around me, and so for me a lot of that is bringing my awe and wonder of the natural world into my books, and because I kind of think of it as magic in the first place, that's what I write about. I also just really love the idea that you know, a lot of the magic I write about is heightened by, you know, emotions someone is feeling or things like that, and I do think that there's magic in that. I do think that, you know, the way that we feel does create a certain kind of energy around us, or it certainly can, and we can feed off of that energy from other people. And so I think the kind of magic I try and write about is magic that feels like a natural extension of the world that we're in.
What is your process like for creating your magic systems for your books?
It's pretty intensive, I would say. I do a lot of work up front to try and understand like the magic that I'm writing about and make sure the rules of the world are consistent and that I'm sticking to those rules. But a lot of it is kind of discovering it as I go. You know, I always have like a very strong idea of what the magic is going to look like, but sometimes once I get in the book and I'm writing it, it needs to change, or some aspect of it isn't working right. And so I'll rework it when I'm in the draft, but I do know most of it before I start drafting, just because for me, I'm already intimidated enough by the blank page, so I try to go into the blank page knowing as much as I can about the book that I'm starting to write.
Thinking about what you're going to write still counts as writing.
It absolutely still counts as writing.
Do you have any kind of like routines or rituals that help you get in the mode for writing?
Yeah, I have a lot. I mean, I'm actually like a creature that thrives on habit and routine. And so, I start every day the same. I wake up at the same time. I walk downstairs. I make my Americano. And then I have different playlists and candles that I listen to and light for different books. And so I try to make my my environment around me, like cozy and making me want to write, but also, after burning the same scent within the same story or listening to the same music, it like automatically puts me back in that headspace. And so I rely on that sort of stuff a lot.
Do you ever make playlists when you're
always? Actually, music is a huge part of my process, and playlists in particular. I make one for a project before I even start writing it. I can't listen to music with lyrics when I'm writing because I find it distracting, but I will play a playlist when I'm not writing, kind of like any other time. So when I'm cooking, when I'm cleaning, when I'm, running errands, I have the playlist going all the time. And it kind of is a way for me to stay immersed in the story even when I'm not writing. And so it really helps me, keep working through things in the plot or the character arcs or things like that, even when I'm not actively working on the book. And so having those playlists to listen to all the time, and the playlists help me a ton in figuring out how I want the story to feel. It helps a lot with like the atmosphere and tone that I'm trying to bring forth in the book. And so I just rely on music a lot.
How has the writing community helped shape you as a writer?
That's an interesting question. I think with any community and any circle of friends, the best people are the ones who want you to be unapologetically yourself. And I think finding book people and getting into the writing community helped me find my people. I felt understood kind of for the first time in my life once I started meeting other writers and book lovers. And it was kind of the first time in my life I felt a little bit like I didn't have to apologize for the things that I love or things like that. I mean, I always had like a very supportive family and things like that. But, I was the introverted, shy girl, and when I was growing up, and I was just like, I always chatted with the teachers, and I just, finding other book lovers and stuff and other writers just helped me be who I am and made me feel like I didn't need to change, that I just got to be myself. And so I think being loved for who you are is a very, very powerful thing.
I was talking to another bookstagrammer who's finished Premier Midnight, and she was talking about how much she really loves you, the way that you describe things, especially with nature and like the waves and the water and stuff like that. How do you go about shaping that, the crafting the words to really bring those descriptions to life?
It's funny because I actually don't feel that description comes naturally to me, but it is something that is deeply important for me that I want for my books, because I love an immersive reading experience, and so I always want my books to feel immersive, and so I actually do passes in my books solely for description. They're such a huge part of my books. I want them to feel descriptive, so I'm thrilled that you were talking with someone who felt that way, because I do put a lot of effort into it. But it doesn't come naturally. It's something I really work on, and especially because a lot of my descriptions do center around nature. I spend a lot of time like on the Washington coast. I spend a lot of time walking through the woods, like, you know, and so when I'm in those places, I do try and pay attention to how it feels to be there. And then, you know, I struggle to put that on the page and do a few passes for it.
I mean, it is quite the challenge. And it's like, you'll read a book and it's like, man, they do such a good job of describing this. But it's like people don't always take into account how much effort it takes to get to that point.
Totally. And I want it to feel effortless, of course, when a reader is reading it. But a lot goes into it also when you think that like especially my second book, they're in the woods pretty much like 90% of the book. I'm like, well, how do I make sure this doesn't feel repetitive, that I'm not describing the trees the exact same time over and over again for, you know, 350 pages. So a lot goes into it. And a lot of that is me honestly wandering around outside being like, what does this feel like?
Well, being in the Pacific Northwest, it's a little more readily available.
Yes, that's very true. Yes.
One more question,
Okay.
and it is the most fun question.
Oh, the most fun question.
Because this is Literary Hype, what books are you hyped about right now?
Oh my gosh, so many. I absolutely loved Belladonna by Adeline Grace. I cannot wait for Foxglove. That comes out in August. Another book that comes out, I believe, at the end of August, maybe early September, is House of Marion by J.L. That
just got the arc of that.
Yes, it is fantastic. I've read it. Very excited for that. What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez is coming out. That is coming out, I believe, in November. I've also read that, and it is phenomenal. Oh, so good. And then Adrienne Young has her next adult book coming out called The Unmaking of June Farrow. And so there's just so many great books coming out. That
We're really just living at a great time for books.
I know. I feel like I just zoned out, actually, kind of just thinking about all of the great books that are coming this fall. I was like, oh my gosh, my shelves are just going to be overflowing. Yeah.
I've got one shelf that's like, I'm barely holding on for dear life.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me and talk about your book, Bring Me Your Midnight.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks again to Rachel for spending some time with me at Y'all West at the very end of the day when I know the authors are pretty tired and worn out from meeting everybody and they're just ready to go home. So it really means a lot to me that she would take the time to sit down and have a conversation about books and her writing. If you want to get your own copy of Bring Me Your Midnight or any of Rachel's other books, those links are down below, as well as where to find her on social media. And while you're that side of the screen, don't forget to click on that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you know when the next author conversations or Comic-Con panels or other just bookish shenanigans. You never know what I'm up to. But get those notifications on so you can find out when the next video is available for you to watch.